It's 9 o'clock, Albert. Leave it up to you. Eleanor, we will call for you again when it's time for vote and commenting, so hopefully we'll have your audio working by then.
Eleanor, also, if you're having trouble with your audio, you also can dial in by phone.
All right, so good morning. I'll go ahead and call this meeting of the March 2026 PSC to order. Julia, can we confirm quorum?
We do have quorum.
Thank you. Next item, number 3, public comment. Members of the public have an opportunity to speak on any item that is not listed on the agenda. As a reminder, the speakers will have 3 minutes for them to speak, and they will have 6 minutes if they're using a translating services or an individual to assist. The members of the public could also wait until items on the agenda are listed to make those statements at that given time by being acknowledged by the chair. At this moment, do we have any members of the public wanting to speak on any non-agenda item? Hearing none and seeing none, we'll go. Excuse me, was that somebody?
Good morning, this is Eleanor Reed. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I had to call in and I'll use mine. Okay.
Thank you.
Seeing none and hearing no members of the public, we'll go ahead and move on to our first action items. So our action items that we have is the approval of the February 19th PSC meeting. Are there any comments or questions of the PSC members?
Albert, we need to review the action items.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah, no problem. So the first action item that we have is the scheduling the training for the ABOTs. Once the updates are made, I don't know if Michelle or the customer engagement team have any updates on that. Okay. Is Michelle on?
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm on. I need a reminder what the action item was.
It was the scheduling the training sessions for ABOD. Once the updates are made.
Yes, the webcast demonstrations are scheduled for May 11th. I'm not sure if the slide was updated. I think at the time we did the slides, it was still TBD, but they will be updated for the next round of this meeting, but they have been, date has been identified.
Okay, so we can close that out since that's already been scheduled. Thank you. And then we have the confirming the ad hoc queries. That's already been addressed, and I think that that's a closed item. The other is showing the chart that lists equivalent enhancements for CalSAWS to benefits Cal. You know, they asking, we could see how they pair together as well. So include a slide showing that. And then sharing the outside benchmarks for self-service site adoption rates. Share a number of documents. Oh, this is several. Share a number of documents that were actually retired for upload. And so that's due in April, but do we have any updates on any of those items today?
I think we can provide more detailed updates for the April one, but yeah, definitely. We can probably provide some updates in terms of the adoption, from adoption standpoint. That was a question. So from the self-service portals adoptions perspective, we also reached out to our national practice, how we are doing in comparison to other states from applications, renewals, document uploads, or change reporting standpoint. In terms of the applications and renewals, Beneficial is slightly above the national average, but of course there are some factors at the states level contributing, such as some states do not have any county offices, so people cannot go and walk in. Those states are kind of mandating people, enforcing people to use online channels more. Those states has higher adoption rates. But for other states have in similar circumstances in terms of the online or the paper or in-person channels, Beneficial is slightly above from the user's perspective. In terms of the change reporting, we are around the national average on the change reporting. There are certain states that are doing better in change reporting. But I think there are some psychological or factors contributing to change reporting. At least in California, when we were talking to our customers, they have a trust factor when they are reporting a change in life changes or change in circumstances, fear to lose their benefits. So they tend to prefer explaining in person rather than reporting it online. That was one of the things that we had observed when we spoke to customers here. But yeah, in general, Beneficial is slightly above the national in terms of the usage of online channels in comparison to other states that we reached out. Yeah.
So, and then thank you, Honor. I think the other part from that, the conversation that we had before was understanding that each county also has a specific desire in terms of adoption at the county level, where some are already at that point of this is the kind of they've reached critical mass in terms of adoption in their particular county. The goal is to eventually have a more surgical approach in terms of those who would like to increase adoption and taking a more county specific approach. The other part was the showing the equivalent enhancements. We actually, our slides have been updated so that you all can see the closer parallel between the HR1 specifically enhancements on the CalSA side and the benefits Cal side, but more updates, more robust updates in April. So with that, if there aren't any other questions, I can turn it back over to you, Albert.
Thank you. Any questions of the PSC members? Seeing none, and for this portion, are there any comments of the public? Seeing none and hearing none, I'll go ahead and I'll move on to the approval of the February 2026 PSC minutes. Is there any comments or questions from the PSC? Before we call for a motion, is there any comments or questions of the public? Hearing none and seeing none, is there a motion to approve the February 2026 PSC minutes?
Albert, this is Sandra. I move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Del Benavides.
Thank you. We have a first and a second. Julia, can you help us with the roll call?
Yep. Clarissa?
I approve.
Lynn?
I approve.
Elisa?
Let's see.
Rachel, is Rachel on? Oh, no, yeah, Rachel?
I approve.
Cecilia?
I approve.
Chris? Jamae?
I approve.
Albert?
Can I approve for the record? I was not present.
Yes, you can.
I'll approve for the record.
Sean?
Approve?
Eleanor?
Approve.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Now moving on to information items. Julia?
All right. So we are going to jump right in and talk about data and analytics, the update. So Rajesh will be kicking us off. So,
all right. Good morning. Rajesh Tehliani, CalSA's project manager. So we officially kicked off the analytics project at the beginning of the month. We've been doing a lot of pre-work and prep work for the last 6 months or so. But now, we are into our official project start timeline. And the detailed planning is underway. And as we have mentioned in the past, our phase 1 is where we will focus on the operational reports. So all the data you will see on this slide and next slide is tied to that phase 1, which is roughly 12 months. So the operational reports we have now broken down into 4 buckets. Case characteristics, continuing eligibility, application, and productivity reports. So we are in the process of compiling the list of reports in each of those buckets. And in parallel, we are also looking at the usability aspect of these reports. Like in the past, in conversation with various counties, we heard that executives like especially the operational reports into their inbox. So we are exploring those options with security and other aspects keeping in mind. We'll look at various other dashboards on that front. And again, there are a set of federal reports which are standard, so they'll come as is. But bulk of the work, will be on the operationals and productivity report. In addition to that, as we have said in the past, we are looking at the natural language querying, meaning if there's an existing report and if someone wants to, for example, let's say there's a pending application report and someone wants to know like how many intake applications came in last week, without running a query, we are looking at some AI chatbots where it could answer those questions for a specific county. Let's go to the next slide, please. Oh, one more thing before I go to the next slide. The other thing, as we have mentioned in the past, the concept of dedicated workspace for counties. So if there's an existing standard report which we produce and counties want to modify, meaning add a column or different sort criteria, they should be able to modify that report and save in their workspace. And also, if they want to share that with other counties, they will have that kind of capability or feature. So all in all, off to a decent start on the planning aspect. If you go to the next slide, please. So timeline, and as I mentioned, we are now focused on our first 12 months, and we will shuffle a few things here. Instead of doing case characteristics, the consensus from the project team was let's start with the intake application as the first module. So we'll work on. We have already started the work on that front. And again, as we have said in the past, we want to do continuous county engagement. So the idea here would be once we have a set of reports from a design point of view, we'll share that with counties through the analytics work group, and then gather their feedback. We'll start working on the actual reports or products. Once we have those, we'll again publish those to the counties for their review and feedback. And we'll at least do 2 to 3 iterations of that before we say the product is ready for what I call prime time in production. In parallel, while we do all that work, we will have some work from what I call is behind the scenes from a system readiness or solution readiness. We'll run some parallel tests to make sure if I have an existing application report and we are producing a new one, the counts need to match, the numbers need to match. A lot of that work we will do behind the scenes. We also understand, there's a significant change component here. So, Holly and Julia have all along insisted that we need to plan and budget for that. And we have indeed. So those threads will kick off in parallel. So all in all, after a good start, this is a project which we are really, really excited. I'll also say that this will be one of the challenging projects, but we are ready to great for it. So I'll pause there. Back to you, Albert.
Thank you. Any comments of the PSC?
Hi, good morning, Rajesh. This is Sean, Region 6. During the work groups or the feedback portion with the counties, would they be allowed to do some data validation of their own? Because I know everybody likes to do their own, and if so, with that feedback, would that also be discussed amongst the counties during that portion of the?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll also share, the definition of how we came up with those measures or, the reports. But again, that's not the expectation we have from a project point of view, but counties, I'm sure want to do that, and that will be available, no doubt.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, Sean, if I could just double click, especially for Region 6 in particular, our goal is to have, there's different levels of reports, as you know, and we want to have someone who is a subject matter expert in the work groups for each type of report, each level, so that you all can validate that. So for operational reports, obviously, we want someone at that level doing the validation.
I appreciate that, Julie, because I think what Rajesh said was very important. Like, we got to understand their logic, like the logic of what the report is intending and not what we believe is the logic, right? But also like where we can, like, if there is some discrepancy, where we can meet in the middle. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Del?
Yes, Rajesh, I wanted to know if you can talk about the vision of the data model, and I'll expand on the question. In the past, we had heard of this concept of like focused domain areas or business areas, right? Where the data model will respond to a specific area of interest. For example, if I'm thinking about caseload and case counts and that sort of thing, there would be some sort of a star schema or some sort of a data model that does that. If I want to look at demographics, it might be something that looks at that. If I want to look at compliance, it might be something that looks at that, right? Is the intent, and maybe you can talk about that, to have those kinds of areas where the counties can then go and pull reports and create reports against? I do understand that there's going to be a set of reports and you're just converting, in some cases, the existing reports to this new platform. But when it comes to analytics, I want to understand what other features are planned to have for the county so that we can self-serve it.
Yeah, the short answer is yes. We will have the data model by, what I call is a functional or a sub-functional area. As you can see, we are in the process of defining that, and we'll share that as well. If the counties are interested in reviewing that, right? And again, here, I'll have to defer some of those questions to my technical experts. I'm looking at Sandeep, who probably is more well-versed, but my thought process there is we are not just looking at data model from a report point of view. Our intention is to build a set of products, which counties can leverage down the stream. So once we see, what reports we need to produce, and our data model will keep more, I would say, products and solutions in mind, as opposed to a very specific report. Because if I did that, then I'm going back to what I have today, which is a purposeful data set or very specific rigid data model. That is not what our at least intentions are here. So,
I think yes, absolutely. The vision is that these data sets are delivered, data models are delivered in data products. So there will be persons, applications, various data products which will be delivered by this team, which is what the reports are built on. And each of these data products will have a corresponding data catalog, which will tell you what the lineage is, what that model was built from, what the definition of each element is. So there is clarity on what the report is using underlying to build that. And to earlier Agash's point, if counties want their own variant of a report using that data product, they can go ahead and build that as well. So that's sort of the self-serve aspect. But the boundary of CalSOS now becomes delivering these data products out to a wider audience.
Sounds good. Thank you for the explanation.
Albert?
Thank you. Sandra?
Thank you, Del, for asking that question, because that was one of my questions. And then the next one is, Rajesh, you talked about the delivery of the reports, and I just wanted to figure out where are these reports going to be embedded within CalSOS, or is it going to be similar to the ad hoc reports where they're being published, and what does that look like?
It's TBD. We are still, but they will not be in Apex. They will not be, we will look into if we need to provide a link from CalSOS, but this will be somewhere in the Databricks domain, and we haven't gone to that level of details, but once we get there, we can share that. Right?
Okay. And the only thing that I would ask is, without a RADS team, it makes it very difficult on where to store these types of reports, especially with bigger counties with large data sets to try to pull down and work with. So those are the biggest pieces, just how do we make it easy to access for all?
Yep. And we'll do a session on that, right? I mean, I don't want to jump to the solution, right?
Yeah.
Before gathering the requirements. So the idea would be, there's two aspects to it. Like we need to make sure that the reports itself are right, but then the delivery piece and ease of use and performance, some of those, we will have a dedicated session, capture the requirements, and then build a solution based on that.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Are there any other comments of the PSC?
I have a question first. On the timeline, are you indicating that the first set of reports will be available February?
Yes.
Okay. So in the meantime, we've been clamoring for reports, right? So some counties are still kind of in that struggle mode to try to get to reports that are required of us, being asked of us constantly. Some HR1 related, others just even operationally related, right?
Yeah.
So some counties have moved forward and built their own reporting infrastructure and built reports that they need, right? When this comes next year, will there be a way for us to compare those reports in the future to make sure that when we're validating, are we gonna validate against our own data? How will that work? How will our own infrastructure work with this new infrastructure once it's live a year later?
Yeah, so I will have to take that as an action item.
I want to say something just to clarity, because your question reminded us that there's some clarification needed here. So in the next year, this isn't new reports, right? These are the reports that you all already have. In a year, they will be available in this new lake house, right? So the goal isn't in the next year to create all, new reports. It's let's do the first things first. You all have established that you need these reports right now. Let's make sure that the new platform is taking care of the basics first, right? However, there's also the ad hoc work that's being done right now that's currently still in play, and we're walking and chewing gum at the same time, right? And so at some point, yes, those will catch up and they will also be in the new platform, but you also still have access to, what we have right now, right? We're not gonna close off the access.
Part of my worry, Julia, is the reason why some counties have opted to create their own reports is because we're trying to understand the house reports and we can't figure it out.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So we built our own, knowing really in response to what our operational needs are, right? We need to understand this is what makes sense to us. So we came up with maybe a different logic than what is in CalSauce. So now if you're building it, like you said, against what's in CalSauce now, how do we reconcile that with what we've been using operationally for the last X number of years? Because we've been forced to build it on our own.
Yeah, so the clarity comes from what Sandeep was referring to is these data elements, having clarity on really what they're for, right? Right now, we're kind of jerry-rigging things together to get you all to the outcome that you want, but we don't really have clarity on every data piece. But once we add that data layer, you all will know where to call for, certain elements based on what you need right there in that moment. The other part too is once we have the self-service piece of it, you're not so reliant on these static reports, right? You'll be able to say, okay, this is what I need right now for my county. You'll be able to create, reports on a more as needed basis. So I think we'll get there. That's going to be part of some of the change management. But the reason we're doing this is you just captured a perfect summary of why we need to actually get this done.
Yeah, I know. I'm very excited.
I know you are.
I just wish we had it now.
But
I just worry that we have so much out there.
Yeah.
And then of course for the now, I worry about counties who don't have, right? How are they going to do their operational reporting while we wait for? Or maybe, like you said, it's in CalSauce now. Maybe they're having to do with the reports that's in CalSauce.
This is just a quick question, and I think you mentioned it, but I didn't quite get it. Right now, when we're running reports, like it takes a long time, and it's a really big drain on the system. Will that be taken into consideration so there's no, takes forever to run something or?
Yes, I think the way we are designing, and again, Sandeep can chime in here, is the whole concept is, well, the way we will design a data model is like, if we know specific, measures, how they get calculated, a lot of that pre-calculation will be done behind the scenes. So when you run the report, it'll just pulling the numbers from specific structures. So that is not the current model. That's why it takes time. Right now, it does all the calculations and everything. So short answer is it will be much faster.
I think just to quote a little bit, right? So there's a lot of Apex queries and reporting builds existing right now. In the scope of this project, that will continue. So change management, figure out the right time your sunset goes and move to this. That will be planned later. This particular one will run faster just by the way it's designed, and it's not running queries on the entire transaction database, but on a smaller. The purpose is analytics, and that's why in definition it'll be much faster query. If you are at this point, and then David and other things, we have alerts on Genwell's side as well, find challenges on the Apex queries, then raise that, because then we'll make sure that, I think some queries take 5 hours and 6 hours, so sometimes they'll optimize. Sometimes we need to make sure the ad hoc DB has enough horsepower, if you may. So those are operational things we should continue to track. But the promise is, once this is done, and if you're running queries on what data products CalSouth delivers, those should be much faster, right? That's the whole idea: the common definition, common understanding, and speed.
But yeah, to Sandeep's point though, if there's issues now, please escalate those now to see if there's anything that we can do to improve that.
They do.
Yeah, they do. I know they do.
I think
Yeah. All right, back to you, Albert.
I think Sean?
Yeah, I just had one suggestion to consider. I think as as I'm hearing the discussion, I appreciate that the counties are going to come together, and I think sometimes there's a lack of, and it's not on the CalSouth side. I think it's more, at least on, I feel on the county side, that something that you mentioned, Julia, where we have people that are the SMEs that are validating these reports and so on, and we then begin to understand the logic behind this. The communication between that and the user, like those people in the district office, kind of at times isn't communicated enough. So I was wondering, Rajesh, if you and the team would consider, like, when some of these reports are launched in March, to kind of have a kind of like a descriptor, like, I'm just going to make this up, right? Like, this is the caseload. Like, this caseload report is meant for this reason, and so on, so that people down the line understand the purpose of the report, and they're just like not misunderstanding it down the line, right? And it's not so much for those program people or policy people that are using this, but more on the line side, so that there is that communication.
Yeah, we will take that as an action item, and we'll certainly consider that. Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments of the PSC?
One more, sorry.
You only get 3.
Okay, the state reports, the reports that the state are delivering now, whether that's through the DHCS, their Power BI thing, or the call center data that's coming out, how are they delivering those reports? Because that we're gonna get asked for the same, like for our own county. So how are those reports being generated now, so that we can know before we're asked on those numbers? Because we're gonna have to explain those numbers. The counties are having to explain those numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably need help here. So there are a set of state and federal reports which CalSouth produces. Those will come as is. If you are referring to the one from CDSS and DHCS,
Yes.
those they are not
You
part
have
of
to
this.
coordinate directly.
Yeah, we'll do
Yeah,
that.
that's straight from them.
Yeah.
And they won't share them.
You would need to ask nicely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they like brownies.
But the path for the state to access that data is same on common time. So they access using EDR.
Okay.
And to Julia's point, interpretation of that, to
Correct.
supplement that data with other sources we don't have.
Right.
But other standard reports which we generate are with PBDS and Click, which is available. Right, like you all know that, it's nothing different.
Right.
Yeah.
Which you all know.
Yeah, and to be fair, they did last week offer,
Oh, good.
yeah,
Okay.
so,
I thought
so
I
that,
heard
yeah,
that.
so Ryan did offer that, so I
Okay.
think that's something that we probably would want to follow.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions of the PSC? Seeing none and hearing none, are there any questions or comments of the public? Seeing none, thank you, Rajesh and team. Dawn, next item.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna have Robert go ahead and introduce the topic, and I will pick up as needed.
Thank you, Don. My name is Robert Lusk, Chief Information Officer here at CalSAWS. Identity and access management. What is that? That's the means by which we authenticate who someone is, and then we grant them access to certain applications or data sets. We did an evaluation of our current solution, and as we went forward, we decided that there's a solution that is going to be more cloud native and better support us long term with the flexibility and needs of the counties. To that, we just kicked off, or will be kicking off, this identity access management replacement. Now, this is going to, again, touch all facets of CalSAWS, and we're going to get through both the communication plan and our risk mitigation plan as we go through this. Next slide, please. So how are we doing that? So we're going to be kicking this off here next week. And what does that entail? What that is we're gathering the team together, we're starting the communication plan, and we're laying the foundation going forward so that we can be both flexible and ensure that we deliver appropriately. It's going to include further development and finalization of the architecture, as well as how we want to baseline where we are now to ensure that we have the same or better performance going forward. Later on, what we're going to be doing, and as you can see at the bottom, it's a very, very rough highlight of the timeline, which is going to span really over the next 10 to 12 months or so, that once we get to the July-August standpoint, we're going to start the initial migrations. These are going to be migrated by application and work stream. And we're going to start by testing all of those internally here to CalSAWS to make sure that if there's any hiccups, we find them internally, not at the counties. And then we'll be rolling it out, migration wave by wave to the counties. Now those waves, it will be to all counties at one time, but only a certain set of applications or small work streams at a time. And then we will have specific support on standby, and again, the communication plan to ensure everyone knows what's happening when we push this out. Plus that we can support them if there's any challenges that happen during the process. Next slide. And then
Back to you.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions of the PSC? Sandra?
So when we're talking about identity access management, because this is a little high level, are we talking about the two-step verification? Is this what the piece that you're addressing when our employees are logging into the CalSAWS system and they're getting the email or text?
that's going to be part of it, yes.
Okay, so I'm a little concerned when you say you're going to roll it out to all counties to ensure there's no disruption. How are we sure that everything is going to roll out appropriately and not cause us some delays as far as productivity goes? What type of testing is being done so that we can ensure that counties aren't being impacted by not getting into the system?
I think that's a great question. Everyone's productivity is really of the utmost importance to us. So there's going to be, we're just starting the communication plan to ensure the counties are included throughout this process. And as the counties are included, before we start rolling it out to the counties, we're going to test the same methodology with the internal applications that we utilize here at CalSAWS to ensure that there's no impact to everyone else. Does that answer your question.
Is there a way to maybe test it out with a smaller group to make sure that it doesn't impact the bigger group?
I'll turn the details of the plan that we're working through over to Dawn right now, but that's a really important question.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
as Robert indicated, we are working through all the details right now, laying it out application by application. But the intent here is that both the current Forge Rock system, as well as the new one that we're standing up, will actually exist side by side, and they will coexist. So that no matter which one you're logging into, you should be able to get to all the applications. So when we talk about rolling things out in waves, what we're saying is, so now we might go ahead and have you switching from your current Forge Rock to the new one on just one of the small applications that you're using. Start maybe communication portal, SharePoint, some things like that that have way less of an impact. Those are those initial migrations. So as Robert indicated, we're going to start by testing this all on ourselves first. So the project staff will be using our applications and the things we're doing. We will then identify the lower impact items in the county. We will switch those systems over. And then we will move into the much more concerning applications, because we do completely understand the impact this could have, right? So before we get into like migrating the main core CalSAWS application, or in all honesty, Benefits Cal, because we do also have to work with the public as well as we do this, those are these last wave migrations at the end. So we will have done several migrations before we get to those two major impactful areas. And of course, when we go to do the Benefits Cal one, we are going to have to make sure that we remind everyone of the technical support help desk and how you can get assistance and all the hypercare things that'll be available. And of course, we also, because we're standing them up side by side, we'll be ready to do rollbacks if we need to. Don't plan to do that, but we do need to make sure that we can do that as well. More details to come though, but we are very understanding of the impact here and absolute importance of not causing you problems in your ability to log in.
So I appreciate that. So what I understood, and maybe but if for some reason there's an issue, you'll still have the other part still standing, so we can revert back right away if there's issues.
Absolutely. The
Okay.
last thing we can do is not have a way to get you back very quickly if we have to.
And then does this also still keep the new system? Does it still keep the two-step process where employees have to have the two passwords to get in?
It does. We are looking at ways to enhance, security is incredibly important. We got to make sure that we do keep it secure and with best practices, but we are absolutely looking at ways to make this easier for your staff. So we can't avoid the security, but we can hopefully make it smoother.
Yeah. Thank you, Dawn and Robert. Appreciate it.
I have a question. So clarification on the wave approach, right? And so you're rolling out in waves is what I understood. But you're actually, at least in the clarification, sounds like you're rolling it by app.
Yes, we are
Like
referring to
counties.
this waves, but it is by app. You are correct.
So the waves are actually app-based, not county-based. And so when you roll out any one application, it's actually statewide that you're rolling it out, right? Because you wouldn't be able to have some folks on one and the other ones on the other one. Yeah, okay. And then, so that means when it comes to Benefits Cal, that's going to be a statewide change, and same thing with CalSAWS. When it comes to CalSAWS, it's going to be a statewide change. It's going to be an overnight thing. You turn the switch and it goes. So to that effect, right, on the Benefits Cal and the CalSAWS side, which I think would probably be the most concerning, does the system, does Forge Rock do, and Okta is going to do the authentication as well as the authorization in the system? Does it drive authorization as well? Meaning,
Go ahead, finish. Sorry, Del, I jumped in too soon.
yeah. So no worries. So if it, so my question is, does it do authorization? And if it does authorization, is the authorization calls baked into the CalSAWS code at the page rendering level? I'm just wondering how much how much rewrite has to be done, or is it separated into a separate layer where the authorization calls are all handled separately? Just trying to think of how is it that's going to be implemented and is going to be so magically, and I don't mean to be right to undermine it, but it just sounds like magically, well, nothing will happen. I know you'll do your best, but I think that in my mind, it sounds like it's a pretty invasive change. And so wondering how that's going to happen and the testing that goes with it, as Sandra was mentioning, to make sure that that's all actually going to work the way that we're describing it.
Alright, so let me take that one on a high level. If you want to get super technical, you'll get that during our first meetings with each of the counties where we get into the deep dive on it. But no magic here. I sure wish, but there isn't. This is boatload of work and testing, just like all projects. However, out of the gate, this is really phase one we're talking about right here. There are future phases. We just haven't complicated this slide with them. This phase, which takes us to January 2027, keeps authentication and authorization exactly as they are today. So we are not attempting to expand what we're doing in terms of each individual system. And it varies by system what Forge Rock does today. We are going to mimic that to the degree that we can simplify access, particularly in that password MFA area. We will look at that, but in general, our going in position on this first phase that takes us to January 27 is we do the functionality we do today, and we do have a full migration plan we're working with the vendor who has done multiple of these migrations from Forge Rock to their product. So it's a joint project between ourselves and the actual vendor who's done a lot of these migrations. There is a phase 2 and 3, which we didn't talk about here, where we are going to expand because the new tool that we're going to, Okta, as you mentioned, does allow us to have some additional functionality to make things simpler in this area. But that's phase 2, and it starts after January of 27. So we did not bring that here today. Can that help?
A little bit. This sounds like a super complex project, and I can definitely see the concern from Sandra, and I'm sure from others, as to ensuring the success by having testing and obviously wherever we can participate as counties. I think it will be very important. I'm sure you'll pull us in, hopefully. I know we've been asking on the BenefitScal side. Maybe this is going to give us an opportunity to expand this BenefitScal testing ability for the county, so to participate on any releases and that sort of thing. So looking forward to getting fully engaged with our teams and making sure that we're helping you test as much as we can.
Yeah, appreciate that, Del, and we will definitely be pulling in county staff. And again, this really was for awareness, to let you know that we are starting this project. We do not have it completely and fully baked in terms of every individual detail yet. You will be seeing that in upcoming presentations, and we will also be starting to engage the individual counties and getting contacts from them to join us in the journey. So again, this was initial awareness, so we didn't surprise you when we came back starting to look to engage further.
Thank you. Any other questions of the PSC?
This is Lynn. Yes, I do have a quick question. I think you answered most of the questions already. But will the plan be to will you have each app, so to speak, kind of in your plan on when they will be coming out so that we will know that?
You will absolutely know that. We are working through that plan right now. As I said, we're trying to get here to let you know this is coming, get it on your radar. But yeah, that is one of the first things we're working through right now. We have already developed the full application inventory. You'd be surprised at the number that you have.
I really do know.
And so we've got that full inventory now. We are working through what we are suggesting would be sort of the least risky way of moving through this and the easiest way to make sure we do thorough testing. Totally bring that back.
And I like to stress the importance of having user feedback on this, because there's nothing more frustrating than not being able to get in to do your work. And our staff can't work if they don't can't have access to the system. So want to stress that as much as, to ease that and keep that in mind along the way.
Yeah, in addition to just understanding what that does to you all, been out there, we also run the service desks for both yourselves and for the Benefits Cal Technical Service Desk, also for your workers to call us. We are very sensitive to what goes on in terms of login frustration. So trust me, it is definitely on my mind incredibly.
Thank you. Any other comments of the PSC? Del.
One last thing that came to mind, I think that as we're hearing a lot of questions, and I'm sure that there will be others in the future, I think it would be important to maybe understand at the county level or the PSC level, what is driving us to do that, right? What were the shortcomings of ForgeRock? For example, I know that we've had some issues in the past. I know you guys got them under control to a certain extent, but what's the gain? What's the benefit, right? For all this pain that we're going to go through, right? In testing and getting all this work done. What is the benefit at the end of the day that counties are going to materially see in the functionality of the system? I think that might be something that would be of interest to include in future presentations and whatnot.
We'll double click on that because I think that was missed, that both Ping was also modernizing, and so we were going to have to move, and so we did an evaluation of the tools to figure out what path. It would have been this level of effort regardless of if we even stayed with Ping, because they were going to the cloud solution that was drastically different than what we have in place today. And so they'll take that as an action to kind of maybe go back and level set on how we got here, Del, because I think that's a valid reminder.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Any last questions of the PSC? Do we have any questions or comments of the public? Seeing none and hearing none. Next item, number 7, Don.
Yep, and Robert's gonna kick us off too, and then I'll pick it up.
Talking about Oracle. So Oracle is what we use for our core database. As we continually look at cost and performance and risk, and we look forward as well as looking at cost avoidance, we made the decision to move from how Oracle manages their solution within the current cloud infrastructure to an Oracle hardware nested within the AWS infrastructure. So this is actually in the Amazon data centers themselves. And what this does, this gives us improved reliability for our use case. This gives us increased capacity and performance, and this helps us with cost mitigation. And then to talk about where we're going with this and next steps, I will turn this over.
Great. And so this one, we are farther along than the last one. So this one, I do want to actually walk you through a little bit of all the testing that we're doing. And as Robert indicated, we had a number of challenges that we are doing this project for to really move onto that very specific platform related to Oracle. So if you go to the next slide, I did want to give you a sense of what's going on in terms of the when. And so we have been and had completed planning at the end of last year. We are right now standing up and have actually in fact stood up those new, what I'll refer to as Exadata machines. That's just the name of these machines that are particularly engineered to run Oracle databases. Like that's what they do. And there are lots of capacity challenges that will help us with, along with we are looking to see some performance improvement as well. We are in that environment stand-up slot right now. Those machines are stood up. We are, in fact, running testing on those. And I'm going to kind of blow out that testing in the next couple of slides so you know the types of tests we're running and how frequently we're running them, because here too, the database obviously is at the core of the application. So another one where we have to be very careful that we are minimizing the risk and testing very, very thoroughly. Once we get through this part that we're in right now, which is standing up all of the environment, doing all the testing, make sure everything is running successfully, we will be setting up all what we refer to as those non-production environments so that we can take a release through it. We'll go through our production readiness, and we are looking to make this switch over with the August release. So August of this year, we are looking to switch from the database servers that we're using right now over to these Exadata machines that are engineered for the Oracle database. If we could go to the next slide. I did want to blow out that testing part that I just talked about, because I'm sure that a lot of your questions would be around, how do you know you're not going to bring us down when you do this, right? And again, sensitive to that fact that you all spend most of your day in CalSAWS when we're talking about line staff. It's incredibly important to what you do. So we do have a series of tests that are both performance and functional that we are running. That includes a performance test, which are multiple 1 hour, just automated hits against the database. And then we have 8 hour endurance test that runs just at very high volumes to be sure that we are performant. The batch cycles have to make it in the time frame or better that they make it in today. So batch cycles are being tested. Regression testing is run to make sure that the functionality doesn't have any problems. Now, again, we are changing out the underlying hardware, but we still need to be sure that there isn't any impact to the application or that it wasn't using something unexpected. We don't anticipate functional issues, but we're going to run regression multiple times to be sure that that doesn't happen. And then operationally, we also have to make sure that the things that we do to support it and keep it running work, that we can mask the data in the non-prod environments, that our scripts run, that we can back it up, that in an efficient manner, that failover and disaster recovery also work. So all of those things are important tests for running. We go to the next slide, you'll see we're running, keep that set of tests in your mind. We're running those multiple times. So we have already completed our first baseline set of those. So we stood up these machines and we just did a run to see what happens right out of the box. How well does it do? We completed that in February. We expected that to not be perfect. It wasn't. It was actually better than we expected, but not perfect. So we go into a series of performance tunings. And we also, on the bottom of this chart, you can see we do have a network change with AWS that was anticipated for March, and it actually already was delivered by AWS. So we have, in fact, put that in. We are about to start running our second baseline. So again, all those tests all over again. And then we'll go into a third one before we actually start to use this in a release cycle. So that's the testing we're doing before anybody actually uses it for anything that will be delivered to the counties. Next slide. So what happens to test the stuff the first thing that's going to get delivered to the counties? We're going to run this through the full development life cycle. So we're working with our M&E partner to move the new database in as they start a release. So as they start the August release, they will do development and assembly testing using the new server, system test using the new servers, performance test using the new servers, staging, and then production. So the idea here is that they will do it through the entire release cycle before we actually ever move this to production. So two variations on testing, one where we do it against the machine itself for performance and functionality. And then secondly, we work our way with the M&E vendor through to full production in August. And with that, I am turning it back to you for questions.
Thank you. Any questions of the PSC?
This is Lynn. I have just one quick question. What will be the user's impact of this change?
If we do this right, Robert will agree with me, nothing. That is the objective. So I will, however, use the seamless as possible phrase. We are doing our best to anticipate anything that could go wrong. We will, of course, have hypercare and everything else that morning, but our objective is that you should not have to use it.
So no impact, but will it improve the system down the road for the user?
Yeah,
Is that the ultimate goal?
Yeah, if anything, you're welcome to call us and say it's running faster.
Oh, okay. I'd love to.
And honestly, you'd make my day if you did. And I would probably fall over and shop. The bottom line is that yes, these things are engineered directly for running Oracle databases. That's what these particular pieces of hardware do, and they're designed to do exactly that. We are already seeing some aspects of it running faster. We have a few things we have to performance tune, but we're seeing some aspects running faster. Now, you know, is that going to be majorly noticeable in an online transaction to the user? Not necessarily. Where we're hoping to have an impact is where you mentioned earlier. The boxes itself, based on the way the current reporting databases are set up, won't solve all those problems, and we'll continue to work with folks on tuning. But this will help us because we can actually now better segregate how much we'll be able to allocate to each county. Because right now you impact each other. So if your neighbor kicks off something, you all are sharing. So anyway, that was a very long-winded answer to say, yes, I'm hoping for some performance improvement, and that is the only thing I want you to notice. But it's a very large major project, and we'll do hypercare at the end.
I'm going to send you an article on waiting time bias, and that human perception of speed is biased towards like waiting longer. Then people don't notice things going faster as much as they do.
You're absolutely right. They do notice it.
They do slower, right? Yeah.
What's the flip? Like if it doesn't work, right? I'm just worried about what will happen.
Yeah, the worst case scenario is that, you know, we will have tested this thing enough to know that the application isn't going to fall over, et cetera, right? The worst case scenario is there's some unique thing, some side edge case that for some strange reason we start getting stuck threads and all of that stuff, and our guys will be just like hands on keyboard watching the screens all day for probably 2 or 3 weeks to make sure that we can rapidly clear that stuff if it happens, and then we'll have to work out, fixing it on the weekend. So, yeah, I think the worst that you're asking me to have a crystal ball, but I think the worst that would happen would be we're going to get some calls about, hey, my transaction's backing up, I'm not getting a response. That's typically a backup in the queue. We will have to try to clear it. But again, the whole thing is designed to try to make sure we identify as much of that as we can. And I would have been disappointed, Del, if you didn't. So I don't know if he was up next, but a couple of hands there, I think.
Hopefully that's a good thing. So I think that the testing plan that I'm seeing, or the approach is fairly robust. And I do see that you include performance tuning, right? Because you're anticipating that you will have to tune because the database, even though Oracle to Oracle, but as you mentioned, it's engineered for running Oracle databases, so it'll maybe be a little bit different. On the type of databases, I'm just curious, are you using Autonomous from Oracle? We have not had very good success locally, right? We use Exadata, but we don't use Autonomous. That's just a side thing. But then on the actual question is on the production. You know how you mentioned that you're migrating this over into a development and a test, and then you're going to release through the new environment. So you're not, or maybe you are, maybe that last release is going to include a very robust performance testing on the production environment, because that's the first time when you release, it's going to be the first time that you're actually testing it. At least that's how I'm understanding it here, because you've definitely tested development, right? Before you've tested test before, likely your staging, maybe you've tested it before, or maybe staging is also brand new at this point. But the production one, which is the most critical one, in that approach, it seems that would be the very first time that is actually getting tested. And so what are you doing to ensure that you're allocating enough time, right? Because that may be a make or break, likely you've caught everything that is going to really stump you right in this process, but you really don't know in your entire production environment. That's the first time that you're actually testing it.
If you could back up the slide for me, that would probably help. Obviously, I did not explain this as well as I should have, because these tests that I'm showing here, that before we actually go to production, are being run on the production version, right? So, so this is hitting, every one of these is hitting production and our performance environments. This is actually one of the few times, because it's not currently in use, that we can actually take a look at running a test like this in a production environment pre actually going there, right? So we will have done it here, which is something we don't have the luxury of doing in actual production. Then if we go back to the next slide, so this is all before it's in actual use. here's the first time it goes into use, which is for our M&E partner to basically take this release through. This will be fully performance tested again. As they're testing their release, they are automatically, obviously, testing the underlying structure, and then it will go to production. So a little clarity there that we will have pre-run it in production.
Okay, sounds good. So on the prior slide, you're actually testing your production version. Let's say that we're on 2603 right now, and you're going live in 2605. Then your 2603 version of the code base, you're actually testing it in production, your load, and you're doing load testing on the pre-production environment?
Yes, we have the current version of prod loaded there, and that is what we're testing on right now. And we are doing that in concert with, again, our M&E partner. So this has been a pretty tightly coupled project as far as the testing goes, because we need their insight as well if they're seeing anything going wrong in the app or anything that's responding to them poorly.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yep. Someone else had a hand up, I thought. I don't see it now, but.
Sandra?
It was me, but mine was along the lines of testing and just making sure there was some county validation, but it sounds like you're testing with the production site. That should hopefully help, and you're probably running those performance tests to see how they're impacting the counties too. So that's really it, just making sure that as we're moving through, and these are big changes, how they impact the counties at the end.
They are. We do believe that the outcome is worth what we're doing, because again, we are seeing capacity. We're coming up against capacity constraints, and you all don't tend to get smaller. You tend to grow, and you want to go faster with more transactions. We are hitting some of those, coming up against some of those capacity limitations. And this is a chance for us to really get on a platform that's engineered for what we're trying to do with these. You have one of the biggest databases around, right? And this box is engineered to run huge Oracle databases. So yes, it's a big change, and there is definitely some risk. We do believe the fact that we will get ourselves into a much better space capacity-wise and a chance at improved performance as well. Is definitely worth where we're headed, because we certainly can't hit up against limitations, right? We can't come to a halt on our current servers because we didn't take action. All right. Were there other hands? I don't see any, but Albert.
Any other questions of the PSC? Do we have any questions of the public? Seeing none and hearing none. Next item, please.
Right. Moving over to workload management. Got Jerry starting us off.
Yep. Thank you. Jerry Nielsen, I'm the application manager for CalSAWS. Before we get into the parts that are coming in, what's changing coming into phase one, I want to kind of recap how we got here. So a couple years ago, the decision was made that in the workload management area, there was a need to take a step back and take a look and redesign the whole area for usability and functionality. So how did we go about and do that? So we started off with regional workshops across most of the counties. It was available to the 58, 44 counties participated across all the 6 regions. 6 different sessions are there, multiple day sessions to do analysis, spark research, determine requirements, gathering and validation at that time. In addition to those work groups where those requirements were elicited, we met with regional managers prior to every session to kind of consolidate, course correct any kind of directions we need, cover things that maybe hadn't been covered thoroughly. And as we got further down in the process of this requirements analysis, there were individual site visits to see how the tools, current CalSAWS system was being used in reality by the workers, and what kind of friction points there were there so that we could address them in this redesign. That brings us up to last year. At the end of last year, we picked up these requirements and began doing the design in conjunction with the work group over roughly a 3-month period. These requirements, we went through the requirements and determined what the design would be to implement phase 1 of this overall redesign, which is scheduled to go in on May 18th of this year. In addition to that, and we'll be picking it up very shortly, is part 2 of this, which will be in September. But right today, we'll focus on what's coming up in May. So could we go to the next slide, please? So what is changing? There are 5 functional areas that are changing or impacted by the release in May. First is appointment management, and we have workload management, schedule management, overall management of the appointments and availability area, and the administrative functions. Beginning with appointment management, we're looking to streamline the scheduling process, improve the history of tracking changes or appointments, and a broader, more streamlined support for reassignment of appointments. Currently, just so you know how it works right now, it's very limited in this area. It's very rigid on how you would do reassignment and scheduling. There's not really an assisted scheduling part of it. There's a lot of manual steps. There's a lot of disparity. Stuff is spread over multiple pages. You have to have multiple windows up to kind of see things. What the future state is going to is more assistance, more guided assistance, consolidating views so you can look at stuff in one screen and make a decision between I'm scheduling this appointment for a worker and I'm looking at worker availability. So I can get those things married without taking a bunch of different clicks or windows and stuff like that. So streamlining. Back to workload management. We're adding a capacity-based assignment and requirement and reassignment piece here. And this is really at a worker level and being able to dial it in at a worker level here. Right now, again, you'll probably see a theme here. There's a lot of manual work that's in this. The information that you need to make these reassignments is in multiple places, sometimes requiring multiple windows up. And so what has been done is that the tools have been expanded so you have more options for doing the reassignments. Things are consolidated, easier to get to, more at your fingertips. Going into schedule management, this is about appointments, workers' availabilities, and marrying those up with customer needs and appointments. So this is one that was a really big one in that currently their workers' availability is a completely separate section from making customer appointments. So if you wanted to marry those together, you had to definitely have multiple windows up. After we go through in the May release, there will be a view that first, there will be templates for making appointments so that you can have consistency. And secondly, the availabilities will be right there at your fingertips when you're making appointments. All right, so overall management of this area. There's going to be a new, I'll call it a dashboard or an area ad. It's my work page that kind of sums up your schedule, appointments, assignments, tasks, any kind of messages that may have been received for the worker. Currently, that stuff is spread out all over the place. So again, a usability challenge for sure. After this goes in, you'll have that one kind of dashboard homepage experience where you'll have access to that and be able to drill down into any details that you need. From an administrative piece, the big thing here is that there's limitations on how configurable and how you can define the workload management, the capacities, the reassignments, how that works. Now, the new admin capabilities allow more flexibility and configurability so that you can fine tune it for the county processes there. And I will hand it back to Albert.
Thank you. Any questions of the PSC? Hearing none. Do we have any questions of the public? Seeing and hearing none. Thank you. Next item.
All right, so we have the HR one work groups. Roger and Fred will be presenting. Roger, you want to kick us off?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Roger Perez, CalSAW's Policy Design Manager. So the highlight for this month for the CalSAW's core HR1 work groups is on the ABOD work group. As a reminder, this work group was established to gather ABOD CalSAW system enhancements to support counties in administrating and improving the worker experience when processing the HR1 ABOD policy changes. This work group began meeting in December, and they completed defining their requirements and prioritizing those enhancements last month. In total, 6 enhancements were identified, focused on strengthening eligibility validations. So the request here being adding some additional validations to ensure the exemption for the individuals caring for a child under age 6 is only applied when the child is confirmed to reside in the household. The second request, improving transparency of determinations. So clearly identifying whether CalFresh work registration determinations were made by either the worker or by the system. The third request, expanding exemption options. So here the work group proposed adding a new exemption label to more clearly categorize migrant or seasonal farm workers who meet required work hours versus the more general exception reason that's being used today. Enhancing work requirement tracking, so adding additional either fields or subpage to more effectively and directly capture weekly hours for individuals attending school less than half time for those hours to count towards the ABOD work requirement compliance. The next request was additional support for work activities. So currently today, workers generate the CalFresh AA8 form via the template repository. The request from the work group was to streamline this process by enabling the generation to occur directly from the non-scheduled work activity detail page, so reducing the number of clicks that the worker has to conduct in order to generate that form. The last request was around the medical exemption page and supporting the generation of the CalFresh 887 form to occur from the medical conditions page, again, versus having the worker go to the template repository, allowing the worker to just directly generate that form once they're in that medical condition page. The project has grouped these enhancements into 2 SCRs for implementation. The first SCR is targeted for release this summer, with the second SCR planned for release at the end of this year. And the project is taking these items back to reassess to see if any of these items can be moved up for implementation, understanding and acknowledging that the priority is on implementing the HR1 policy. So for ABOD has a June 1st effective policy date. The project is targeting to get those changes into our 2605 release, which will be deployed to production and made available to our counties on May 18th. And just one last note here, we'll be tracking the progress of these SCRs in the CalFresh system changes in progress section of the PSC as we move, of the PSC deck as we move forward. So we'll be providing updates on these items in that section in future PSC meetings. With that, I'll hand it over to Fred to cover our HR1 advocate work groups.
Good morning, everyone. Frederick Gaines here, Benefits Style Director. We're going to talk about the advocate HR1 work groups. And just as an overview of just a little bit of how we got to this point here. Back in the fall of last year, when the HR1 work groups were created on the CalSAW's core side, there was a request for the advocates to have their participation. And the compromise was that we were creating the HR1 advocate work groups for each one of the HR1 subject topics. And that was agreed upon in our JPA and our PSC meetings. And then we decided that that was going to follow the normal UCD process, but a subgroup to the work group, and then bring those back to the UCD process. So that's where we are right now. And we're going to talk about each one of the 4 work groups that we have in flight right now. So the first one is the CalFresh processing work group. Each on the timeline here, you'll see that we have scheduled the 4 milestones. We have 3 completed. Our 4th one is coming up very shortly here on the 19th. And then that one where we will bundle all the requirements and present them to the work group for their approval. And then we will take them to the larger stakeholder group for a future UCD meeting. Next slide, please. Same one here for the ABOD work group. We have completed the first 3 milestones. We have those requirements bundled up. They are in the review process with the work group right now to provide their feedback. One key note from this one, we had 33 total requirements that were captured by the work group. Of those 33, 9 of them were able to be made. I'll tell you about how the ABOD is going into effect April 30th. But 9 of those requirements were able to be added to that SCR effective later on. We'll talk about that. And then we'll be presenting the entire bundle of the requirement items to the UCD group as a whole a little bit later at another UCD meeting. And then the TRUE work group. The TRUE program is what we are implementing for the customers to provide their employment verifications and income verifications through the Benefits Cal portal. That work group has had 2 milestones. We have collected those requirements. We are bundling those up and have sent them to the advocate group, the work group, for them to provide their feedback. And then we will move that into the UCD, an upcoming UCD as well. Next work group. And then the last one is our Medi-Cal work group. We've had our first milestone. Our second milestone is coming up on the 19th. At the end of that meeting, then those requirements will be bundled up and presented in our an upcoming UCD meeting. UCD, our user-centered design meetings, they meet monthly, so these are coming really rapidly, and we'll be providing those bundles and sharing those out and getting that feedback. Next slide. There was an action item from the last PSC where there was a request to see the SCRs that we have coming out for the CalFresh and the Medi-Cal changes. So this slide illustrates that. As I mentioned earlier, the ABOD requirements, April 30th is our release. That's that first SCR on the left side under CalFresh. And then the TRUE implementation for the income verification, income employment verification will be coming with our 2607 release in July. And then on the right side, you'll see the Medi-Cal releases that are coming. Excuse me. The retroactive Medi-Cal update, 2606 in June. And the work requirements for MAGI, 2609 in September. And then we have semi-annual redeterminations for MAGI, also in September, as well as the cost sharing for adults next year. That was my last slide. I think it's back over to Albert. I think it was my last slide.
Thank you for the information. Any questions of the PSC? Sandra?
Hi, sorry, I have one question for page 22 on the ABOT exemption, the work registration exemption. It says care for a dependent child under 6. Should that be care for a dependent child under 14?
I believe it's under 6, Sandra. I can't. I'll go back with the team to confirm. But this is the requirement coming straight from the work group. I believe it's correct, but I'll take that back as an action item.
Sandra, this is the work registration exemption, not the ABOT exemption.
Oh, got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I had that same question myself previously.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Sean?
Yeah, I had a quick question, especially on this slide. I really like where we're heading with this to try to ease the workflow of how the worker's going through this. I had a question more like on the Medi-Cal side. I mean, have we started thinking about how some of these things can also be leveraged for Medi-Cal work requirements moving forward? Because I think it would be very useful to kind of ensure that, if somebody is updating, medical conditions for CalFresh, that also kind of be, seen on the Medi-Cal side. So I guess that my question is more like for Roger, like have we, I know that there's a separate, Medi-Cal work requirements, work group, but like, are we bringing the work groups along the way to kind of get their feedback so we're looking forward and not have to kind of take a couple steps back?
Yes, Sandra, great, sorry, Sean, great question. Yes, the work groups are sharing the information, so they're taking that forward. I would like to just open it up to maybe Sharon or Michelle to touch on that a bit more, since they're kind of leading up the Medi-Cal work groups.
Yeah, so for the work requirements for Medi-Cal, we have an ongoing work group, and the counties, to the extent possible, we are aligning what is there for CalFresh ABOD for the exemptions as well as, well, not for the exemptions as well as the work requirements. A consideration for Medi-Cal is because we're tightly coupled and depend upon CalHERS, and CalHERS is the system that is doing the verifications of exemptions as well as the eligibility determination and whether or not work requirements are met. It makes it so that we're limiting the overlap that can happen between CalFresh and Medi-Cal, but to the extent possible, we're trying to make it as user-friendly and overlap as much as possible between the different programs.
Thank you.
Sharon, I have a follow-up question on that, and to Sean's questions there. You know how you mentioned that CalHERS is the one that is verifying whether the exemption is valid and whatnot. Is that information, once you verify that an exception is valid, is that information being brought back over to CalSAS? In other words, all the work that is being done by CalHERS, that's communicated back to CalSAS so that can be leveraged and used in other programs?
Okay, not everything, some of it, does just reside up in CalHERS, where we will get a med and what exemption. For example, in exemptions, they'll say which exemption applies, so we'll know. A lot of the things like the medical frailty exemption, it's likely that in the CalSAS system, we'll have the survey associated with it, because it is, a lot of it may be attested to. In terms of meeting work requirements, in terms of income, or we'll have some of that information if it was based upon what they retrieved from Equifax, because we will be receiving the Equifax information for income into the CalSAS system for the county workers. So it depends on the exemption. It depends on what requirement was used to have that met. To the extent possible, we will receive information from CalHERS.
Okay. I think that's the concern that at least in LA County with such a large caseload on the Medi-Cal side, that all these exemptions that we could be capturing, right? And I hear you that there's some that we will definitely get, right? Like such as income-based type of exemptions and whatnot. But there's others that we might not get the full details in order to use them in CalSAS for, like, let's say, CalFresh. And so in that case, can we look at whether that's possible? Is that something that the project is looking at as expanding that with the CalHERS folks to provide that data? Or is there HIPAA requirements or things like that where they might not be able to provide information? Like, for example, medical frailty, right? Would they just say, yeah, this person is considered to be medically frail, and yes, we're accepting that as an exception, and can that be flagged on the CalSAS side so that any other program that requires an exemption for ABOD and whatnot is able to leverage it?
Yeah, Sharon, can I jump in here for a second? Yeah, we have to, CalSAS can only have certain types of data in it, Del, because there's certain healthcare information that CalSAS can't because of our designation. So we're happy to take that back, but just understand that there's some constraints on what CalHERS has and what CalSAS can take some of the data.
Understood. So outside of the HIPAA requirements or those types of requirements where we cannot store that data, But those exemptions where we are going to be storing in CalSAS, I think the concern, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, is that in CalHERS, you might get an exemption, but then we're going to have to do that work again and revalidate in CalSAS because we didn't get the details that we needed, right? And so the customers being hit up for work exemption justification or exemption or justification on CalSAS when they've already met it somewhere else. That's
And I
think
mean, I think there's kind of still discussions on, and this is the last update I got from my Medi-Cal partner, on the DHCS side and CDSS, in which, like, right now we're going with CalFresh first. So whatever we're looking at CalFresh, right? So we're not necessarily stating why is the exemption, just is there some type of mental or physical challenge or barrier that is an exemption, right? That qualifies for your exemption. But I think it's the kind of vice versa because, of course, in CalFresh, we're not going to have access to CalHERS, right? So whatever is being leveraged through the Medi-Cal side, is that sufficient for us, right? And it should be. At least, that's just my personal opinion, right? But at the same time, I think both our CDSS partners are saying, is that enough for us to justify that information has been verified by Medi-Cal that we can leverage on our side, on the CalFire side, right? So I think that's where there's still some, especially the like medically unfit, there's still a lot of unknowns on the DHCS side because CMS hasn't released that. So I guess that's where I'm kind of like wondering, at least since with the CalFire going first, how we can help influence that. But I think the vice versa is still a long way to go because there's still a lot of unknowns on the Medi-Cal side, and it proves a challenge.
Yeah,
Right.
Sean, I know I'm in those conversations with CDSS and DHCS, and I can say similarly, they're having those conversations as well in terms of what data can be leveraged. Obviously, that's at a policy level, beyond our purview, but I think we also are, encouraging that from an automation perspective, so that we can streamline these efforts.
Yeah, and I'm really happy that you brought up that point, Julia. At least in our discussions with some of our managed care plans, and we're like, we can cross a very fine line that we don't want to, right? And that's like we don't want to have to need or require to be HIPAA compliant, right? There's no need for us to kind of store that information. It's just, are they telling us that they have enough information for us just to make them exempt, right? We're not justifying or having to validate, should I say, their medical condition or mental condition. It's just, is it an impairment to work, right?
Can I just add something? So a lot of the information, for example, the exemptions like medical frailty, there will be in the CalSAS side in the data collection, the details of which type of medical frailty is in there. The rest of that in terms of the verification and validation between CDSS and DHCS in the definition as things become clearer, we will work together to have that overlap as best as possible.
I have some other questions. Thank you, Sharon. I have some other questions, if that's okay. Albert, can I continue with on the ABOT work group, right? As as the counties are trying to figure out how are we going to collect this information from our customers, right? Especially the ones that have large caseloads. Some counties will have to develop outside systems or purchase outside systems to be able to get that, right? Partnership with the agencies where folks can volunteer and how to collect that data that then eventually is going to have to make its way into CalSAS, right? Somehow. Is the project looking at that from a perspective of an API, for example, that can be leveraged by counties? That's something that we're going to need in LA County, but I would imagine that there's other folks and other maybe third-party applications that are going to have solutions that are going to require this types of API. So I'm wondering, in that whole workspace of ABOD capturing of work requirements and whatnot, is that in the roadmap to create these APIs?
So Dale, this is Roger. I personally haven't been in any discussions around the counties, procuring different systems and APIs, right? So I haven't heard of that come up. So I think that is something that as the counties are identifying that need to procure these outside tools and that information needs to be integrated at CalSOS, we need to have those discussions because we do want to make sure that we have a standardized format, a standardized API that will meet the needs of all of our 58 counties. So I would encourage that our counties bring those discussions up to CalSOS so that we can then have those discussions to figure out what is the right design and implementation to be able to meet that need.
We'll be bringing that up, Roger. That is definitely a need in LA County. Being able to coordinate all that, there's no solution for that. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on the county side to be able to get that information collected, and it's going to have to be loaded into CalSOS somehow, right? As far as whether we find the number of hours that folks are volunteering and that sort of information. Not sure how much is going to be in Benefits Cal to be able to capture that information from folks. So that's going to be very important. On the Truth implementation, right, and the work group for Truth, that information that you're collecting, this is going to be loaded into Benefits Cal. And this is more of a clarification for me. This is loaded into Benefits Cal, right? Because at the time of the customer interfacing with Benefits Cal, you're getting the income verification. That income verification is going to come to CalSOS and be populating income screens in CalSOS.
It's going to be displayed as information that came from True. The worker then has the ability to either accept that information or not accept that information. So it is still up to the worker to make that determination whether they agree with that information or not.
So if the True is verifying and is getting your information right, and that's a reliable source, Benefits Cal accepted it, validated, right, got the right frequency of pay and whatnot, and we know how much the person's making per month or whatnot, right? That's going to come to the CalSOS. I'm just trying to understand. And the worker will have to accept or reject. The worker's not going to have to copy from the screen into the income screen, right?
That is my understanding. That's the approach that what we're going forward with, Del. We're still working through the design of that, so we're still very much in the early phases. But yes, we're trying to make it as efficient for the worker as we can. So the idea being, being able to copy, retain that information if the worker accepts.
Yeah, from LA County, I think the request would be to avoid having to come back and do an automation of something like we did for the PBS, right? Where PBS comes in as an abstract, people have to go read it, figure out, what to do with it, and then they have to go and populate income screens that we are now getting rid of, and we're doing automation there. This is a validated third party, which should come right into once, as you mentioned, the worker accepted it, it should automatically populate the income screens on CalSOS.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, Del, the scope of Truth. Truth is not, it's accessing banking information for the individual, right? So you said a lot of validation, confirming it's true, all those things. Well, there's some people that have bank accounts that they share with another individual. There's people who have, some of their stuff in Venmo and Cash App, right? And those types of things. So all it's doing is providing data, right? And it's going to analyze it to the best of its ability. There still needs to be a human interception of that information to verify that it's true in some way versus I may be incorrect to be saying it should just auto-populate. The reason why is there's just a cautionary tale of that information still needs a set of eyes on it to make sure what's going in it is actually what's intended, right? So it's not doing any of this robust analysis of like, is this person, all it's doing is providing the data. It's providing information, right? That's all it's doing.
So thank you for the clarification. What I understand is that it will be able to pull data from, say, for example, from your employer. So if I work at Walmart or I work for Uber, right, and it's based on my identity that is going to pull that pay information for me, that's income. And so that specific type of income where you have a one-to-one match, then I'm assuming that income can be something that can be accepted. And thank you for clarifying. It's not going to automatically come in as de facto like income for the person, but it's going to provide some ability to reduce the manual data entry or re-entry of workers. That's, I think, that at a minimum what I would expect. Thank you.
Thank you. I have to step away, so I'm going to hand over the baton to my co-chair, Sandra. I do apologize. Sandra, I am sorry for the short notice, but thank you for supporting in this effort. Thank you so much all, and see you guys next month.
Thanks, Albert. Dal, did you get all your questions answered?
Yeah, Sandra, I do want to do a quick time check for you, just
Yep.
as you're stepping into the role. We are 15 minutes behind, just so you.
Okay. All right.
I just have
So,
one quick.
yes.
This is Lynn. I have one quick question before we move on. On the ABOT enhancement work group, for number 2, it says that they're going to indicate the CalFresh work registration detail page with the determination which was performed by the worker or by EDBC. So my question is, do we have an outline yet of which exemptions are going to be then entered by EDBC?
Roger, did you hear the question?
Yeah, I did. We haven't started the design on this, so I just want to be transparent there. We do know which exemptions are determined by EDBC versus those that may have been determined by the worker, and so that is something that we will document as part of the design phase to denote those that can be done by either the system, the worker, or both. So that will be part of the design document. Did I answer that question?
I guess too, I mean, if somebody is receiving SSI, for example, I'm assuming that would be done by EDBC, but EDBC would have to be run in order then to update the screen.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
Through. Okay.
Yeah. And again, this is not changing any existing functionality. This is keeping functionality it is. It's just identifying where those exemptions were determined by the worker versus by EDBC.
And the worker can override either way, right?
Correct. Yes.
All right. Thank you for that. Do we have any public comment? Okay, hearing none and seeing none, we'll move on to the next piece for policy.
Yep. Policy release update. Is it Gloria? Are you going first?
Okay, am I showing up here? Yeah, they switched the slides on me. Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. So for the sake of time, this first slide just represents all of the changes that we have coming up for our monthly releases. So we are now in March. Our baseline release is going this weekend, and we got a approval on green light. So yay, we're ready to go for this Sunday. And then we also have our additional SCRs that we have highlighted for the months of May prior to releases as well. And our baseline release come for May, and then also for prior release and Cal here's changes in June. Next slide. And of course, our testing was successful. We are at the end of that, and we are now ready to deploy coming, like I said earlier, on Sunday. And kudos and much appreciation to all of the teams who have helped out with this release, including our county validators to get us to this point. So our deployment schedule is still scheduled for 3/22, and we will have our post-release daily calls coming up on the 23rd through the 25th of March. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Okay, so for the Medi-Cal state budget, we've gone through this at previous PSCs, and we are working for the 2609 to update or to change some of the aid codes for the UIS individuals. Next slide. Okay, so now we'll go into the Medi-Cal HR1 changes. And so we've gone through this and nothing's really changed too much. In 2605, we are doing the county return mail, the update of the mailing addresses, and that was a county work group approved design, and that's in development right now. For the remainder of them, we are still on track. As I mentioned before, for the 2609, for the work requirements and community engagement, as well as the 6-month redeterminations for the new adult, the Magi new adult group. Those are in progress and still on track for 2609. Next slide. Here are some additional Medi-Cal HR1 changes coming up later this year in 2611. We're going to have, the NCOA connection to update directly for existing Medi-Cal individuals. Their mailing addresses, taking away from the county workload, the discontinuances due to Paris as well as RVP, and automating that with a new interface between DHCS, and CalSAS. And that's it for Medi-Cal HR1. I'll pass it over to Roger for CalFresh.
All right, thank you, Sharon.
Oh,
I'm going to try. Oh, go ahead.
No, here's another future changes. So.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna try to speed us up here. So on the CalFresh, CalWorks side of the house, we have no changes since our last meeting in February. These policy SCRs and state budget SCRs remain on track with their current scheduled implementation dates. Just one item that I'd like to highlight for this section is at the end of this month, on March 31st, the CalFresh HR1 non-citizen eligibility policy changes will be implemented for the 4/1 effective date. If we can move over to slide 36, our CalFresh system enhancements aimed at improving processing efficiency. So similar, no changes here from our last meeting. These SCRs remain on track with their scheduled releases as previously communicated. The highlight I'd like to make here for this month is with our March baseline release that Gloria just covered on the 22nd, 23rd. We do have 7 system enhancements targeted for implementation in this area, with the most significant change being the automation of the payment verification system. And the project did host a dedicated demo for the counties on last week on March 11th to introduce new functionality and address any questions. One additional item to note is that the HR1 work group prioritized SCRs, again, will now be included in this section. You'll see those identified by a reference to the work group name at the beginning of their description. So you'll see the CalFresh work group SCRs listed here, and then next month we'll be adding the ABOD work group SCRs to this section. If we can move to slide 43, upcoming outreach efforts. 43, please. One more. Oh, I'm sorry, 38. So in addition to the PVS automation demo, we have job aids, we have quick guides, updates that are currently being developed to support these changes for the HR1 ABOT policy changes. This was an action item for PSC. We do have the dedicated demo targeted for May 12th from 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. Along with that, the project will be developing and updating job aids, quick guides, and web-based training materials to go along with the implementation of that change. I believe with that, I'll be passing it back over to Sandra.
Thank you. Any comments or questions of the PSC? Yeah.
I just have a question on the 2611, the NCOA update of the address. Something just came to mind. So this one specifically to Medi-Cal, the system updates the address before the mail goes out. Is it possible that if a notice was sent out, I would imagine that even though it is Medi-Cal, right, it's one address on the case. And so if I have some CalFresh as well, notices that are going out, those CalFresh notices would be sent to the correct address, correct? And then I'm assuming that, and maybe you can confirm that. The other item is, what happens if the CalFresh notice hits first on that day, and then you get through the Medi-Cal run? Would the CalFresh notice go to the wrong address, and then the systems updates the address, and Medi-Cal notices go to the correct address?
So, Dell, because what we're doing is we're going to do it like so many Medi-Cal individuals per month, kind of ahead of the renewals mostly. We haven't, had the work group and so, the definition of how it's going to work. But, months ahead of the Medi-Cal renewal, we'll be updating the individuals' mailing addresses for those Medi-Cal individuals. If they're also on a CalFresh case, there is only one mailing address for that individual. So the mails, whether it's CalFresh or any other program, will go out with the current updated mailing address.
All right, I'll follow up with more questions.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
And I do have a question for the non-citizenship changes. We have seen a significant number of cases that discontinued on the Medi-Cal side for certain fields not being completed, but that wasn't something that was provided for us as information that we were going to see. Most of our Medi-Cal individuals would be discontinuing because of RE. And not getting their RE in on time. So we've seen some notices go out saying that this is impacting them April 1st for individuals that are within the age groups of 26 to 49. So I'm not sure. I was told that this is not a glitch, but it looks like a glitch to me. Is there a solution for this?
We are analyzing. We do that currently, and for some of them, it is because of the data collection information for citizenship may be inconsistent, but we are issuing information to the Medi-Cal county workers on that.
Is there a potential batch to help us clear this up? I'm not sure how big this issue is, but it would be good to assess it because right now we're just getting questions from the advocates and we're restoring cases as we go. But it seems to be a bigger issue.
Yeah, where possible, we do automate it. Those reverts from discontinuances, but when it is something in the case itself, that's when we do include it in the list and instructions as best as possible for the workers.
Thank you. Any other questions from PSC? Okay. Any questions from the public or comments?
Sandra, I have one question.
Yes.
You said the demonstrations that you've listed here, has the registration for those already gone out? Or can anybody attend?
So for the payment verification system, that demo has already occurred. Those recordings are on the CalSol's web portal. For the ABOD, I don't believe we've sent that communication out yet. So that is upcoming.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, moving to the next section, and it's benefits Cal transition updates.
Andrew, we got to ask for public comment.
Oh, we did. There was no comment.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Sandra. This is Lisa Sellis here. I'll take us through the benefits Cal transition update. Sorry for my voice today. A little rough. All right. So we are in month 2 of our 6-month transition in phase. Month 1, some highlights there. We obviously onboarded some staff. We've been going through technology enablement, getting access to all the tools and technology that is required to conduct knowledge transfer and then future job shadow and reverse job shadow activities. We did receive access to the code, which excited a lot of people at the end of February. So we have a lot of people reviewing that in detail. And we are in the thick right now of our knowledge transfer sessions. So I have some statistics there on the next slide if we jump down there. In terms of our knowledge transfer sessions, we currently have about 89 scheduled and this or documented. This is a number that fluctuates as we get into more detail and review documentation or complete a session and require more information. As of last Friday, we were about 38% complete. As of today, we're up over 40%. We have about 5 more sessions this week, next week, and through the end of the month. It's very intense. We have over a dozen sessions each week. And by the time we meet again, we'll be about 80% complete. If maybe a little more on our knowledge transfer sessions. Some of them are time dependent on certain activities. So for example, there's a disaster recovery test coming up next month. And so we'll be doing our knowledge transfer and job shadow at the same time when that activity occurs the second weekend in April. Document requests, this is another important statistic that we track. You might say, why? When we onboarded at the beginning of February, we had over 100 document requests. I think it's around 120 right now. I think as of this morning, we've received about 98. And the reason we have those is we'd like to review and do some self-study ahead of knowledge transfer. So by reviewing the material that is available to us, we can understand what's there, document our questions. So as we come to the knowledge transfer sessions, we are prepared and we're really focusing the limited time that is available on answering some of those open questions for things we didn't see or needed additional detail on. So again, the goal there is to get through all those outstanding requests by the end of the month, and then from there go through knowledge transfer. As we look to the future into April, we'll start and ramp up on our job shadow activities. So that's watching things as they occur in flight. The good news is we actually have started some of those activities already. So for example, we are sitting in the various work groups that you heard from Fred on earlier, as well as in the UCD meeting that occurred yesterday. So we are participating in a number of areas already to making sure we're understanding where things are at, what are the future work items that are coming. And it's really going to help us as we work through those items that will be completed or in flight as we take over the system in. Back to you, Sandra.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions or comments from the PSC? Okay, seeing none. Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, we can move on to Peggy for CalSAL's Learning Exchange.
Good morning, PSC. I'm Peggy Macias. I'm the Customer Engagement Director. Today, I'll just give you an update on our status of our CLE sessions, CalSAL's Learning Exchange sessions. So, as you know, our sessions, we develop our sessions to provide timely and relevant education for the regions on any identified topics and allow the counties to, ask questions. We assess our topics that we're going to present, and where appropriate, we hold focus CLE sessions to better assist the counties in gaining a fundamental understanding of the identified topic. Whenever possible, the sessions include county participation to highlight best practices and lessons learned. In preparing our calendars for our CLE sessions, we work with our project teams on the roadmap to avoid any duplication. Next slide, please. So for February, our CalSAL's Learning Exchange was focused on the communication portal. These sessions were held on February 17th, 18th, and 19th. The communication portal CLE provided the end user with an overview and demonstration of the new CalSAL's communication portal. The portal will eventually replace the current web portal, which will be archived for a certain duration. And then the goal upon conclusion of the session was for the county staff who currently have access to the web portal to have gained enough knowledge to confidently use the new communication portal. This session, we had 663 participants that attended, representing 50 counties. We record all of the sessions, and all the material for the session is stored on the web portal, and it's available for counties to use at their discretion. Next slide, please. This slide gives you a sneak peek into the types of comments that we got back from our participants. So overall, you can see that they were all very positive. People are excited about the new communication portal that's coming and can't wait to start using it. Next slide, please. This slide gives you our calendar, our schedule for 2026 for our upcoming CLE sessions. In March, we held just yesterday. Yeah, yesterday we held our last session for the delegated administrators session. So next month you'll hear an update as to how that went. And what's new and exciting is that we are holding our first cross collaboration CLE with CDSS presenting on the CalFresh payment error rate per on March 24th. So we've been working with CDSS and getting this prepared, and we're excited to present this first time cross collaboration exercise with all of you. Here you will also see some of our upcoming sessions. In April, we have collections. In June, we're doing an overview with our SMEs, our committee members and work group members on the processes. In August, we'll be looking to do a CLE on skipped issuance report. And then in October, we're going to do a session for our PPOCs on how to self-serve. So lots of things coming up. As always, this schedule could change based on anything that comes forth that seems to be of a higher priority. So we pivot whenever we need to. Next slide, please. So next steps, just know that with all upcoming CLE sessions, there is a broadcast notification that goes out to the counties, letting them know, the dates and times for when these sessions are going to occur and what the subject is. And then it's followed by an email that goes to the PPOCs, and who in turn pass that information on to county participants who they feel would best, get the most out of the information that's going to be presented. I'll also put another plug in for county collaboration. If there's any subject on our calendar that any county thinks or feels that they have some best practices or lessons learned or business processes they'd like to share, please reach out to your RMs so that we can consider including them in our presentation. And if your counties or if any of you have any ideas for potential upcoming CLE topics, please let your regional managers know, and we will see where that fits into our calendar. And that's the end of my presentation. I'm back to you, Sandra.
Thank you, Peggy. Any questions or comments from the PSC? Peggy, I have one question for the 324 CDSS CLE. Did that already get sent out?
Yes, and we sent out a reminder just earlier this week. We sent out a reminder to the counties letting them know.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Any questions or comments from the public? Okay. Moving on to the next topic, and it's for Julia.
Yeah, so just a shame-filled plug on the CalSAWS conference in June. Our annual conference is coming up. We're bringing it up to Northern California and the beautiful city of San Francisco, California. So I know we've had it typically down in SoCal. Our registration opened at the beginning of March for the conference, which begins actually on June 25th, 2026. Registration is rapidly getting filled, and so we want to encourage our county partners, for those who are participating, to register now and early. The room block is also approaching being full, so we want to make sure that if you want to be there, you have the opportunity to. We took a lot of the county feedback from the last conference, and we have more sessions, but shorter time frames, because I know we had some 90-minute sessions where we had to go and poke a few people falling asleep in the back. But we have an exciting agenda. We are looking forward to coordinating with the counties as panel members, but also participants. So thank you in advance for your cooperation and your coordination. Here's a list of the breakout sessions. We have 3 plenary sessions. We have a keynote speaker who will be actually Mike Wilkeny, who used to be the former Secretary of Health and Human Services, also did work at the federal level in Health and Human Services as well. And then we also will have some participation from our state leadership, as well. So with that, I think that's all that Jen wants me to say. I'm going to turn to her, who's the boss of this conference, and she's going to correct me if I'm wrong. Is there anything else that I need to add, Jen?
No, just the links are on the
page.
there. There's a separate link for your conference registration compared to your hotel registration, so make sure that you do both. And really the reason she handed it over to me is because the next slide is a video, but I forgot to share audio and we're behind, so we're gonna skip it. You can watch the video on
Yes. Back to Sandra. Back to you, Sandra.
Thank you, Julia and Jen. Next, questions or comments from the PSC? Okay, seeing none. Questions or comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, moving to the next topic, state partners update.
Hey,
Sorry.
Sandra, this is Neha Dhawan from OTSI. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Yes, we can.
So I have a couple quick updates. On March 16th, OTSI formally submitted the Deloitte Portal Mobile Amendment number 2 to FNS for review and approval, followed by CMS submission yesterday, that is March 18th. And on March 17th, we also formally submitted the Clear Best Change Order number 10 to FNS for their review and approval. That's it from OTSI. Over to you, Sandra.
Thank you so much. CDSS?
Thank you, Sandra. To ensure coordinated planning and implementation, CDSS continues engaging with CalSAWS, our county partners, and advocates. These meetings support shared understanding, have been helpful in identifying early issues in our HR1 response, and are helpful to ensure consistent communication statewide. Regarding the HR1 implementation efforts, we are facilitating 2 upcoming touch points. First, the CalFresh Implementation County Operations Group, which is next occurring on April 7th from 3 to 4:30 p.m. And then following the county group, we are convening the CalFresh Implementation Advisory Group with our broad stakeholder partners, next occurring on April 14th from 10:30 to 12:30. These sessions continue to focus on operational planning, county readiness, and alignment across systems and stakeholders. In addition, CalFresh has provided outreach materials for counties and community partners to distribute regarding the upcoming eligibility changes for non-citizens. Similar materials detailing changes regarding CalFresh work requirements will be provided shortly as well. To strengthen CalFresh payment accuracy, CDSS is partnering with Westat to conduct an in-depth analysis of payment error rate drivers. This project complements the department's internal review and will help identify the most impactful areas for improvement. Key activities include a focus group with select community-based organizations and county site visits to gather frontline operational insights. We'd like to thank our partners in Los Angeles, San Bernardino, and Solano counties who have already worked with us and Westat on this effort. And upcoming county visits include San Diego, Orange, Riverside, Contra Costa, Alameda, Stanislaus, and Santa Clara counties. And we have an exciting update regarding the ABOD waiver. Federal guidance issued in October ended the ABOD waivers tied to lack of sufficient jobs, which ended California's statewide waiver on November 2nd, 2025. We received updated guidance from FNS on February 26th, temporarily reinstating the previously terminated waivers due to litigation. As a result, California's statewide waiver was restored, but only through the original end date of January 31st, 2026. This means that California's statewide ABOD waiver has expired at the end of January, and this change does not affect the separate waiver, which is active for 7 California counties, specifically Alpine, Colusa, Imperial, Merced, Monterey, Plumas, and Tulare, which remains in place through October 31st of this year. Lastly, despite federal funding uncertainties for cash programs, CDSS has received TANF funding through May 2026 to support routine CalWORKs benefit processing. And at this time, we do not anticipate any further interruptions or uncertainties regarding federal funding. I think that's it for our primary updates, and then I'll pass it to Martha to provide updates on the policy letters that have been posted since our last PSC meeting.
Yes, thank you, Emily. Good morning, everybody. I'm Martha, CDSS. We only have one policy letter that was issued since last PSC, and that is ACL 2615, which is the CalFresh 1-year able-bodied adults without dependents time limit waiver for Alpine, Merced, Monterey, and Plumas counties. The letter gives information about the 1-year ABOD time limit waiver that's going to expire on 10/31, and it also provides information on that waiver transition. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily and Martha. Next up, DHCS.
Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Katie Mee from DHCS. Can you guys hear me? Just want to make sure.
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So I just have a few updates. DHCS has released a few ACWDLs. The first one I'm going to talk about is 26-04, Residency and Electronic Verification Status Update. So what this letter does, it provides updated and consolidated guidance on California state residency policy and verification procedures. DHCS also published ACWDL 26-05, which is updated guidance on electronic notices. So this ACWDL provides counties with updated guidance on providing Medi-Cal members with electronic notices. Both of those have been recently issued. Those have been recently issued, excuse me. Moving on to HR1 updates. The first one is we have also published ACWDL 26-07 policy changes to retroactive Medi-Cal coverage periods. So effective January 1st, 2027, retroactive Medi-Cal will go from 3 months to 1 to 2 months. DHCS has been working with CalSAWS and our CalHERS partners to implement these changes. Additionally, DHCS continues to work with CalSAWS on ensuring that NOAA snippets and translations are sent to CalSAWS by their respective due dates to ensure the timely implementation. And we continue to support CalSAWS in the CalSAWS and Benefits Cal Facilitated Work Group and provide policy guidance as needed. Those are my updates, so I'll hand it back over to you, Sandra.
Thank you, Katie. Any questions or comments from the PSC? Okay, hearing none. Any questions or comments from the public? And hearing none, that is the end of our meeting. So our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.